All right, friends, we've got a new partner alert here at DNVR. We partnered with the premier dispensary for you guys to get smoking hot deals. Solace Meds has 4 convenient Colorado locations, one in Fort Collins, one in Wheat Ridge, one off of Broadway, and one just blocks away from the DNVR bar on East Colfax. Solace has some great deals this month. So on Cinco de Mayo, you can buy 3, get 1 free on the entire store, plus an additional 20% off when using the code DNVR20 at checkout. On Mother's Day, again, buy 3, get 1 free off the entire store. Memorial Day, same thing. Buy 3, get 1 free off the entire store. And again, if you use the code DNVR20, you can get an additional 20% off everything you're getting over there at Solace Meds. So head over to solacemeds.com. That's SOLACE meds.com and purchase from there.
Number 1 for the one and only DNVR. 2 goes out to Zach Mace, Arcade at the bar. 3 for Mr. B in that old trophy case. None supposed to wait for, well, bring on the chase. Out on the field at Mile High, Broncos win is our desire. Coupled with Breck, Brew and a friend, bleed orange and blue to the bitter end. Come and join us, DNVR. We are DNVR.
Happy Monday, guys, and welcome into the DNVR Broncos podcast presented by MSU Denver Online. MSUdenver.edu/online is the place to go to scope out all they have to offer. 750 total classes where there's something for everyone down there at MSUdenver.edu/online. And MSU Denver students work twice as many hours as students attending any other Colorado institution. So, you know to head down there if you're trying to keep that full-time job and get your education, hopefully get a better full-time job on the other side of it. But gentlemen, good morning.
My boys, good morning, guys. It feels like a great Monday, which you don't often say, but the vibes are great. Broncos got a 10-man draft class, and is Aaron Rodgers going to be a Denver Bronco? We're less than 1 month away from potentially finding out, of course, with that June 1st, June 2nd deadline. The vibes are good in the Mile High City, even though the weather tried to damp us down. Not happening. And the comment section, guys, is looking great today as well.
Yeah, it
Zach,
is.
when are the vibes not good, by the way?
Oh, man, that's a good point. Vibes are always good.
Vibes weren't very good after the Broncos didn't select Justin Fields with the 9th overall pick.
Especially with the hype of Aaron Rodgers that day, and it was just that was a letdown.
I did want to thank everyone for all the great comments during our draft coverage, like this one from Darren, and really just for tuning in to the entire week of our coverage. A lot of new, I believe, DNVR Broncos followers here on the YouTube channel. So appreciate you guys all for tuning in and taking in our coverage. And we were really proud of the product. So thank you guys for helping make that a possibility. All right. I'm thinking that maybe we can add a little countdown meter to all of our lives moving forward, which is just a countdown to June 1st or June 2nd, really, is when this might go down. And we're going to talk a little bit about the draft class here in a little bit. But the name that has everyone buzzing in Denver is Aaron Rodgers. So let's, Zach, if you wouldn't mind, take the people who maybe were on vacation this weekend down a little bit of a timeline of what is going on here with Aaron Rodgers.
So about 5 hours before the draft started, news broke that Aaron Rodgers was starting to tell people within the organization that he did not want to return to Green Bay. So what happens? Well, teams start making calls to the Green Bay Packers, trying to see, is this true? What's going on with this? And right before the draft, about an hour before the draft, we have reports coming out from a couple local media members saying that a deal with the Broncos to land Aaron Rodgers was so close to happening. I pretty much it said is all but a done deal at this point. Well, it wasn't a done deal. That trade did not happen. But what happened over the next few days when the draft continued was just more reports about how disgruntled Aaron Rodgers is with Green Bay. And now he's starting to tell teammates that he's not going to return. Aaron Rodgers on Saturday shows up at a Kentucky Derby party wearing a questionable hat, but not asked about his feelings about what's going on. And so right now, guys, we kind of stand in that exact same place where this is the best opportunity for the Broncos to land Aaron Rodgers that we've ever seen. And on top of all of that, guys, not only is he frustrated, but there was a report that said that that his 3 teams of choice, his wish list, was San Francisco, Las Vegas, and Denver. And then maybe it's just because I'm in the Denver bubble and was really focused on the draft, so only saw Denver things. Every other report I saw from that, or from then on out, really just focused on Denver in terms of connecting Aaron Rodgers to the Broncos. So, I mean, there is smoke here. It really, really seems, guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about the possibilities of tossed out there when it came down to 49ers, Raiders, Broncos. 49ers got their quarterback with Trey Lance. They've got their future plan in place. The Raiders, you know, they don't have right now. It would take an incredible amount of cap gymnastics to get Aaron Rodgers in. And could you see Aaron Rodgers and John Gruden getting along without clashing? That just seems like it's an explosive combination that would blow up in a bad way. And that leaves Denver. Denver is the place that makes by far the most sense. And according to Ian Rappaport on Saturday during the NFL draft on the NFL Network coverage, Rodgers is very interested in being a Bronco.
Yes, he is. And there's 2 things with that. First, we saw that the 49ers, at least reports said the 49ers were interested in giving up the 3rd overall pick in order to get Aaron Rodgers. So I actually don't take them out of the running for Aaron Rodgers right now, because I think they'd be willing to give up Trey Lance in order to get Aaron Rodgers, because they need to win. Kyle Shanahan, 1 winning season, guys. So I don't think that takes them out of it. And I think they have a great trade piece in Trey Lance in order to do that. The Raiders, I think that they would be willing to go through whatever cap gymnastics they need to. So I don't take those teams out of it. Like, I don't think those teams are taking themselves out of it. But what gives the Broncos a huge advantage here is 2 things. I think John Elway does give them a big advantage. Aaron Rodgers saw what John Elway did for Peyton Manning, how he went all in on that time. Aaron Rodgers has not felt like his team has gone all in on him, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So even though John's not running the show, I think Aaron Rodgers, and I think there was even a report about this, that Aaron Rodgers really likes that John Elway is still in the building. So 1, that. And the second thing, guys, one thing that San Francisco and certainly the Raiders can't compete with is all of the offensive weapons that the Denver Broncos have. What's the one thing Aaron Rodgers has been screaming for? Offensive weapons, specifically young offensive weapons. He's wanted them to use a 1st-round pick on wide receivers, tight ends, someone he can throw the ball to, and they have not done that. The Broncos, that's all they've done pretty much outside of Patrick Surtain, guys.
Yeah, and so it makes sense why Aaron Rodgers would want to come to Denver. I'll even throw in additionally, I reported on Thursday that him and his fiance, Shailene Woodley, have been spotted throughout Boulder over the last couple weeks. So, you know, there's other people saying that she has a house there. And but, I mean, it sounds like he enjoys the city. Here's the problem. He doesn't have a no-trade clause, so he doesn't get to dictate where he's going in the same way that, you know, our Deshaun Watson conversations from earlier in the year pointed towards, oh, okay, he has a no-trade clause, he has final say. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have that.
Guys, how does that happen really quick? How does that happen?
Well, I don't know how it happens, but the thing is, if Aaron Rodgers is serious about saying, well, screw it, I'll retire if I'm not a Packer, he has the ability to say, look, I'm only going to Team X, Team Y, or Team Z. Anything else, I'm retiring. So he may not have a no-trade clause, but he kind of has that chip in his pocket if he's willing to say, I would rather not play than be in a situation I don't want to be in.
Well, and it seems like that's why, the three teams that have been reported so far are the only teams that people are talking about. And like I said, all I've heard is Denver after that, which is huge. And that's connecting the dots about what makes the most sense for both sides. And what this also means is that the Broncos, because he doesn't have a no trade clause, won't be able to get him on the cheap. If he's okay with going to Las Vegas, if he's okay with going to San Francisco, then Green Bay is not just going to hand him over to Denver for cheap. So it means the Broncos are going to have to give up a lot to get him, which is fine, guys. If you're acquiring a Hall of Fame quarterback, that's okay to give up a lot. And what I was saying was, how does that happen? How does Aaron Rodgers' agent sign a deal that doesn't include no trade? That it just blows my mind.
Yeah, that's bad agenting by Aaron Rodgers' agent there. Speaking of what the Broncos will have to give up, did you catch the behind-the-scenes clip of George Peyton in the war room? He's discussing some sort of deal with the people around him, and he says, okay, so 1, 2, and 3, and next year's 1. I mean, what else could he have possibly been talking about there?
Are we talking about a trade back to the Packers at 28?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, even a trade up to number 4, if they wanted to get up there to draft someone, 1, 2, 3, and a 1 would have been a lot to give up for that.
Yeah. So you think it was the Broncos moving up, not another team moving up?
I don't think any deal that they could have been discussing would have had a 1, 2, 3, and a 1 unless it was for a player.
Oh, I see. Oh, man, I see what you're saying for Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
Do you think they really made that decision, though, in the war room when it was, a couple minutes on the clock? Or do you think that they were in the war room, at 2 p.m. on Thursday?
I think they were in there when all this was going down.
Yeah, I mean, boy, that would be something. But then the Broncos said that was too much or too little, depending on how you view this. George Payton said no. So do you think that that's too much to give up for Aaron Rodgers?
No, I don't think he said no at all. I think that they were ready to do that. And then the Packers said, okay, maybe we shouldn't trade Aaron Rodgers so hastily. I think we should, take our time here and see what happens. It seems crazy for us to trade the best or second best quarterback in our franchise's history over the course of a few hours because this just blew up. I think the Broncos were ready to pull the trigger if talks actually progressed. Ever since then, there's been reports that are really walking back how deep into it the Broncos were. I watched that. That's what I thought was they were talking about.
Well, I think the Packers have to reach a point of they have to reach a point where they're willing to accept the dead money cap hit, and that's not something that they've ever done. Certainly not in 1 year. And so, I think the hesitancy is all on the Green Bay end, not wanting a $31 million of dead money on one single cap. You'd rather spread that out. And also having to accept that Aaron Rodgers probably isn't going to play for them ever again. And it's one of those things where you wonder why this came out on draft day. I mean, it's possible, guys, that in terms of the Packers moving toward a point where they would they accept that Aaron Rodgers is not coming back. You basically are going through the 5 stages of grief. They're probably at denial and or anger right now. Accepting that it's not something they were going to reach in a course of, say, 48 to 72 hours, even on the outside, if things had really accelerated that week, let alone if they all accelerate on draft day. And everything I've gathered is that just the Packers, they're not at a point where they're willing to say, yes, he's gone right now.
Yeah, I think it was Aaron Rodgers intentionally sending them for an absolute frenzy. Aaron Rodgers is a smart guy. He knows that a deal probably wasn't going to happen right then. But also, he started to put things out on Wednesday with telling the 49ers, according to reports, come and get me. And that's when we first started to hear the reports connecting Aaron Rodgers to an outside team. And that was first the 49ers, and we heard the Broncos and Raiders come in. So I think he wanted to send them for an absolute frenzy. And what a way to do it. I mean, guys, that is the biggest middle finger you can do, is 5 hours before the NFL draft starts, is to send your team into an absolute chaotic frenzy. Now we're getting reports coming in earlier today saying that the Packers tried to trade up for Justin Jefferson last year. The Packers tried to trade up this year to get Aaron Rodgers, a playmaker. It just didn't happen. Maybe Aaron Rodgers throwing them for a frenzy threw their trade packages off this year, because instead of focusing on trying to get a deal done, it threw their war room completely for a loop. So I think it was very intentional that this was done now. And I think Aaron also realizes that realistically, he probably wasn't going to be able to be traded until June 2nd. So why do it 2 months ago? If you really want to hurt the organization, you do it now. And guys, really quick, we have a super chat coming in for Angel. He says, love all the content at DNVR. Been riding with you guys for a minute. Been repping from New York City. Go Broncos. Well, we love it, Angel. Thanks so much for repping us on the East Coast. And another thing I love, guys, is we got the countdown going on. Shout out to our producer, Allie. 28 days and 12 hours until June 1st.
Oh my gosh.
That is it's going to go by fast, I think, honestly. And I personally believe that Aaron Rodgers had that leaked on draft day because he thought, okay, that will give them a sense of urgency so that they can start to reap the rewards of the package that they're going to get today. You know, we talked about this a lot on Thursday. If you get that deal done before the Broncos pick, well, you get to pick 9th overall. But now, if they were to do a deal with the Broncos, they would be dealing with a pick that they got from the Broncos team, who is a Super Bowl favorite. And, you know, to our headline, which is where do the Broncos stand with or without Aaron Rodgers, and that will lead to us talking about compensation and if it's worth it. The Broncos are a Super Bowl favorite. I mean, we watched basically live on DraftKings Sportsbook as the Broncos went from plus 3,300. Well, they went from plus 6,000 to plus 3,300 to plus 1,400 while these rumors were kind of going and circulating around. And that's just, and that's just the betting side of things. The Broncos have Aaron Rodgers. The way that they've constructed this roster, they will be a Super Bowl favorite. And I think there will be a lot of people's Super Bowl picks. So with Aaron Rodgers, there is no ceiling on this team, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think they're immediate Super Bowl contenders. So, Ryan, when you say favorite, are you saying the number one favorite, or are you saying a contender?
I'm saying they're in the top 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think I think they're right there. They're a legit contender.
They realistically replaced Green Bay in the top 4. Right now, you'd say that the top 4 are Tampa Bay, Kansas City, Green Bay, Buffalo. If Rodgers is not in Green Bay and he's a Bronco, then you just slide the Packers out and you put the Broncos in there. That's where they stand. I mean, probably, places where they'd be giddy about Aaron Rodgers being out of the mix, probably start with Minnesota and Tampa Bay. Minnesota has a clear path to the NFC North. It changes everything for them. Tampa Bay becomes the overwhelming favorite in the NFC to be in the Super Bowl. The question then becomes, does the ride get a little too easy over there?
Oh, Tom Brady would love this so much, because then they are the heavy favorites to be in the Super Bowl next year. And the AFC just gets that much tougher. And the AFC West, guys, gets that much more exciting. I mean, could you imagine Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes? You just hope that fourth quarterback is Derek Carr, not Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater.
If the fourth team is the Broncos in that equation, there's really not much positive spin on it. This is probably going to be a long 5 or 6 years for the Broncos.
5 or 6.
Well, let's say Aaron Rodgers accomplishes his goal of playing well into his 40s. He's talked about that over the last few years. You're trading for Aaron Rodgers, and assuming that you keep him upright, this is not a 1 or 2 year thing. This could be a 5 or 6 year deal.
That
would be nuts.
Tom's raised the bar. I mean, he's raised the bar. Now quarterbacks if they're elite, they think in those terms. How do I put myself in a position where I am in a condition to keep on slinging and keep on winning at age 43?
Well, all he has to do is
the
check out the
landscape has
TB12
changed.
method.
I mean, it's really it's kind of, Brett Favre had a big season at 40 with the Vikings, and that's another thing, guys. If I'm thinking about George Payton's perspective on it, what's the closest George Payton has ever come to the big ring on his finger? It was when the Vikings brought in Brett Favre. So he more than anyone else understands the impact that even a late career, short-term quarterback can have on a team's hopes of being there at the end. Another thing that kind of popped in my mind, guys, as you mentioned John Elway earlier, does Peyton Manning give Aaron Rodgers a call at some point and sell him on the Broncos? Absolutely.
If he needs to.
Right, because Peyton can tell Aaron, look, I know that you haven't gotten the support, the organizational support that you wanted up there, but Denver is more like Tampa Bay in what the Bucs did for Tom Brady. Think of all the players the Broncos were finding ways to bring in, and DeMarcus Ware, Aqib Talib, Lou Vasquez. They bring him in, and he becomes an All-Pro guard. Wes Welker. Players came, and sometimes, like take Emmanuel Sanders, for example, was about to go to Kansas City, was literally in the Chiefs building, gets the call from the Broncos, comes out there, and these guys, they took fair deals, but maybe not as much as they could have gotten elsewhere. So, the Broncos are willing to do what it takes to surround that quarterback with everything he needs to win, and with players willing to take just a little bit less, you do have that chance of being able to squeeze 20 pounds of talent in a 10-pound bag.
Yeah, and the team might already have everything he needs to succeed, which is why I'm talking about, this team being a Super Bowl favorite, one of the Super Bowl favorites, if you get Aaron Rodgers. I mean, what is the hole on the roster? Some people might point to linebacker and speed at linebacker, but there's no perfect team out there. So if speed at linebacker is your biggest problem on your team, and you have Aaron Rodgers, who I love this point from someone in the comments who said Aaron Rodgers didn't play for the first 3 years of his career. He might be 37. He's basically 34 in football years. So I think that this team is ready to go right away. You could maybe even go out there and sign one of the older free agents who's been waiting around if you want to add to the offensive line. There's certain things you could do, but I think they're ready to go right now.
So I think that if we look at where the Broncos have holes on their roster, like you said, potentially that coverage linebacker, I think is really the only hole on defense right now is a coverage linebacker. And you drafted 2 safeties if you want. And also you have 4 starting cornerbacks. So you can use one of those guys as essentially your coverage linebacker, especially when it's an obvious pass situation, which Vic Fangio is going to do. So that's a hole that easily can be plugged with the talent you have on your team right now. On the offensive side of the ball, right tackle is a big question mark. You have Juwan James, who could go out there and play 16 games or 14 games. So that could be plugged on your roster. If not, maybe you're sliding Dalton Reisner out there. There's a DeMar Dotson that's still on the market right now. I like the way he played. You're not going to get top 5, top 10 play from him, but you're going to get average play, and you're going to be satisfied with that for sure. So you can easily replace that. And then I would think that there's one other weakness or 2 other weaknesses. Center, guys, is a position where Lloyd Cushenberry, he progressed last year, but still wasn't good enough. You can slide Graham Glasgow right inside if you want and start Netani Muti, or you can start Quinn if you want. And then the biggest hole on the roster is quarterback. And obviously that goes away if you get Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to mention that everyone's going to all of a sudden start feeling like they look like a Pro Bowler when Aaron Rodgers is back there moving around, getting the ball out in lightning speed. So, we kind of joked, I think, on the Friday show saying Juwan James might really love football all of a sudden more than he ever has if Aaron Rodgers comes in here. Why? Because Aaron Rodgers is going to give him an opportunity to be a Pro Bowler, legitimately. And then he's going to, be in line for big money as soon as the Broncos, his contract with the Broncos comes up. So this team's ready to go. Someone in the comments said, when Manning was here, we had the no-fly zone and a top-ranked defense. We greatly need to improve our defense. I don't know how. I don't know where you're even looking for improvements except for the one place that I mentioned.
Yeah.
I think that I truly believe the team, not the final product that the Broncos had, but the team that sits here now is better than the team that Peyton Manning came to, and I don't even think it's all that close.
Well, wow. I mean, you take a look back at that, you may not be wrong, because Peyton, of course, comes in 2012. And at that point, Eric Decker, pretty good. Demaryius Thomas had that burst at the end of 2011, but you had a lot of young guys that were still kind of relatively unproven. Now, on the defensive side, you had some parts. You still had Champ Bailey playing at a really high level. You had Von Miller coming off of being, of being a spectacular rookie. You had Elvis Dumervil, who was pretty much a perennial Pro Bowler at that point. You had some pieces, but not as many. Your safety core is better. I'd say your interior defensive line is probably at least as good, if not better. And your cornerback depth. I mean, that team, of course, had Champ and also had Chris Harris Jr., but we didn't really know what Chris Harris Jr. was becoming just yet. And remember, they actually had Tracy Porter starting that 2012 season, that first year with Peyton Manning. Certainly on the defensive side, I think there's more talent in place right now. And oh, by the way, if you bring in Rodgers and guys and it's the same situation as exists in Kansas City and Tampa Bay, where players want to take less to stay, you start looking at fitting everything in and saying, yeah, after this year, you might be able to get Von Miller back for less than he would get on the market. You might be able to get Kyle Fuller back. And I think we all expect big things from Kyle Fuller being back in Vic Fangio's defense. All of a sudden, maybe you have a chance to have a band that you keep together because guys want to be a part of this.
And especially if they think it's going to be 5 or 6 years long, that's a huge selling point.
Yeah.
And you can just keep rotating guys in if you want, specifically on that defensive side of the ball. If a guy goes and gets paid, well, you let him go get paid somewhere else, and then you just bring another veteran in at a much cheaper price, because that can happen when you have a Super Bowl contender right here. And really quick, a shout out to K Ferg in the comment section, guys. We got Packers Nation worried right now. We got Packers fans in here saying Aaron's not going anywhere. I don't know about
Denial
that. That's
phase.
certainly not what Aaron has said.
Denial phase.
You're in the first of the 5 stages. You're in denial. You got to get through anger, bargaining, depression, and maybe by June 1 acceptance. If the Packers get to acceptance by June 1, I think we're going to see a deal.
I'm convinced they will be there by June 1 when they realize their options are trade Aaron Rodgers or get nothing.
Okay, so it seems like one report said that there is a way to get Aaron Rodgers back, and that is by firing their general manager. If you are the Packers, what do you do? Do you stick by your general manager, or do you stick by Aaron Rodgers?
So I am of the belief here that you could fire the GM. A lot of people in football circles really strongly disagree with me. And I understand the other side of this, which is, okay, Aaron Rodgers has not been exactly like a help to the organization over the last month, and now you're going to fire the general manager, and you're basically just giving all the power in the organization to Aaron Rodgers. So in the end, I understand where people are coming from. And then when you combine that with the fact that they have Jordan Love, I think that you kind of have to stand by your guy. You also add in the fact that Aaron Rodgers is 37. It's a weird and awkward situation. But what I will say is that I think an NFL owner or NFL decision makers are going to say, look, we have to stand by our decision makers and not let the power go all to the players.
I think you're right there. And especially the Packers in particular, no owner, but Mark Murphy is running the team, and Mark Murphy, his time in the NFL goes back to playing in the 70s for Washington. I mean, he is basically, aside from the time he spent in law, he's pretty much, whether it's been a player or an administrator, he's a football lifer. And Green Bay also as an organization, not politically speaking, they're conservative. They tend to be more reactive, want to see how things look with other teams before they incorporate it into their own philosophy, whether you're talking about football stuff, whether you're talking about marketing and financial type stuff elsewhere in the organization. That's just how they're wired, what the DNA of the Packers is being never kind of first through the door to do something. And if they were to effectively fire their GM in order to placate a player, they would kind of, in the NFL perspective, they'd be the first through the door on this one. I think if we're talking about the NBA, Gutekunst's gone. I mean, we've seen coaches and executives that get jettisoned in favor of the player. That's already happened in the NBA. And truth is, guys, that is probably coming to the NFL. With star players in particular. I would be stunned if Green Bay is the first to go down this path.
Well, guys, it was kind of a team that did that about 30 years ago, 20 years ago, actually. Or 30 years ago. No, the Broncos. Now, it wasn't necessarily John Elway or Dan Reeves. It wasn't like that type of a decision where it got to this point. But an owner in the NFL chose his quarterback. And how many years did John have left? What was that, like 7 years left, I guess? And looking back, six. 6 years left. Aaron Rodgers wants to play for 6 more years. And how did that decision work out for the Broncos? So I think we have seen a tiny bit before, obviously, again, not to this degree. And I think that the right decision for the Packers is to absolutely move on from their general manager if it means keeping Aaron Rodgers for them, guys, unless for some reason they've seen like the Patrick Mahomes behind the scenes for Jordan Love. Like everyone with the Chiefs organization knew how good Patrick Mahomes was going to be. Maybe not as good, but they knew he was going to be the truth after having them in the building. If they see that in Jordan Love, then I can understand that. But guys, you have to take the quarterback here. You can't take the general manager.
Yeah, the other thing also on Jordan Love is, unlike other years, you don't have even any preseason snaps to go off of. With Aaron Rodgers, there were some preseason game snaps as a rookie where he showed those spectacular flashes. He'd already shown something, at least at game speed, even though it was the preseason. Aaron Rodgers, basically the Packers were giving him most of their preseasons for 3 years, and it was enough to where you saw a year-to-year improvement to where you felt like, okay, there's a viable reason for moving on from Brett Favre and stopping playing is he going to retire? Is he not going to retire game year after year? And going forward with Rodgers. The Packers don't have that data with Jordan Love right now. So I would imagine if they did make a trade, they'd want to have somebody else in their building who could start just in case Jordan Love is ready, because you simply don't have any game speed snaps to go off of right now and seeing where he is.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what is the trade package for Aaron Rodgers? And then I want to move on to the other side of this, which is where are the Broncos if they don't get Aaron Rodgers? But first, what does the trade package look like, Zach?
Well, if Aaron Rodgers is saying he wants to play for 5 or 6 more years, I think Green Bay tries to get 3 first-round picks for him. And again, if Las Vegas and San Francisco are in this, then it's going to cost you that. Now, let's say one of those teams back out, then maybe you're talking about 2 firsts and 2 seconds in order to get him. But you're crazy if you're not including multiple first-round picks.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's either 3 first-round picks or 2 first-rounders and a young player who would be a first-round equivalent. And so realistically, that third player, that player that would be in lieu of a pick could be somebody, and this is more maybe Green Bay demanding it and saying, hey, we want somebody who is already down the line and has proven he can play. And that's where it could be a Bradley Chubb or a Jerry Jeudy or a Cortland Sutton in the conversation. Rather, I know people joke that the Broncos, they're drafting Patrick Surtain for the Packers. That's not necessary. That's not really the case. The Broncos genuinely like Pat Surtain and how he's going to fit. So I think it would be either 3 first-round picks or 2 first-rounders and a player equivalent, a 1 or 2 day 2 picks, and a quarterback.
And I really quick, agree with you, Mace, that the Broncos didn't draft Patrick Surtain for the Packers, but I could see him being included in a top 10 pick. That could be a guy that the Packers want.
If the Packers say, okay, in lieu of a first round pick, Surtain, if the choices are Pat Surtain and Bradley or Bradley Chubb, if those are your two, those are the two guys the Packers want. With all respect to Surtain, you're holding on to Chubb. So, and just because of the nature of his position, then I think it would probably be a Surtain. So I wouldn't close the door on that. The Broncos, I think, would rather do it, even though George Peyton loves his draft capital. I think the Broncos would rather do it for 3 first-round picks because they would expect those picks to be picked 25 or later in round 1. And that's why the Packers might want a player who's a first-round equivalent if we're talking about those three components, either 3 picks or 2 picks and a player, because if things go as you expect, they're going to be pick 25, pick 29, hopefully 1 year, pick 32.
Yep. Real quick, we've got hundreds of you guys watching, but on the YouTube, we only have 33 thumbs up. So if you're watching and you're enjoying the show here, hit us with a thumbs up. You can subscribe to our channel to get more content like this, plenty more Aaron Rodgers talk, plenty more rumors that are going to leak that we'll break down here on the show. And you can even sign up for alerts so you get a little ping every time we go live. Okay. All of you guys agree you take that deal, right? Even if it's 3 firsts and a young player?
Yep, exactly. And really quick, we have a commenter, TK24 Rock. That's a nightmare name to pronounce. But he says, cannot give up Chubb or Sutton. Yes, you can. Yes, you absolutely can. Now, do you want to give up those guys? No, but you can to get a quarterback. Guys, you can have a great team and no quarterback, and you're not a great team. If you have a great quarterback and no team, you can be a very good team. The Broncos, by losing one of those guys, wouldn't be losing their entire team, and they'd be getting their quarterback. So, yes, they can give up one of those guys. Even though you don't want to, they can, and it would be okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Those guys, you're talking about good players, yes, but if you're going to get Aaron Rodgers in a trade, there's going to be at least part of it that's going to hurt a little bit. Don't expect to have the type of deal that long ago Edgar Kaiser pulled off for John Elway from the Colts, where the player you're giving up in the deal is Mark Herman, a quarterback who really wasn't going to play for you anyway. Yeah, that it's not going to be that easy. You have. In terms of Mark Murphy, if it's coming down to him approving the deal in Green Bay, being the team president, you still have someone competent at the wheel, unlike the Baltimore Colts long ago.
Yeah. I mean, again, you hope to keep all of those guys together, but it's not going to stop you from getting Aaron Rodgers and becoming a Super Bowl favorite.
No, certainly not.
No.
Okay. Last thing I want to discuss here, guys, is just let's say this all does turn out to be a fantasy world that, some Packers fans think we're living in. Where is this team? How ready to compete are they? And especially after this draft class, how do you feel about the Broncos moving forward, Mace?
They're ready to be a playoff team, but not a division champion. They're a fringe playoff team. I think as constructed right now, if Drew Lock, let's say he ends up doing enough to earn the job and he plays at an average level, or he doesn't take the level jump and you put Teddy Bridgewater, who's proven to be an average quarterback, in there. Average quarterback with the rest of the guys on this team, that's 9 to 11 wins. So depending on how the rest of the AFC shakes out, maybe you're just out of the playoffs, maybe you're getting in, but I think it's very realistic as this team is constructed right now to expect this team to be the 6th or 7th seed, in the postseason.
What we found out from Mike Kliss right after the draft was that this quarterback competition between Locke and Teddy Bridgewater, if there is no Aaron Rodgers, is going to be 50-50. It's going to be fair from OTAs through training camp. There's no front runner. And someone pointed out to me, they said, if you have a true quarterback competition, doesn't that mean you don't have a quarterback at all? And I just haven't been able to get that out of my head unless Drew takes this and runs away with it. And that's possible because of all the work he's been putting in that year 2 to year 3 jump. If he does that, then this is absolutely a playoff team. But if this is something that's coming down to like the final preseason game, or, you know, the second preseason game, which is the final preseason game now with 17 games on the regular season, that really, really scares me. Then I think we're talking about 8-9, 9-8, which is a big improvement from last year, guys. 5-11. I mean, it's not crazy to say, you know, that 7-10 would be the jump that they would take if this quarterback play is, you know, below average, which I think right now, unless Drew takes a big jump, it's hard to say that it's not below average, you know, 15-20. But I like this team around the quarterback. So that's why I'm saying they're not going to be a bad team. But 8-9, I think, is where this team is in the playoff conversation come December. They could go to 9-8, and I don't know with 7 playoff teams if that's going to be a playoff team right now. So just what we know, I think they're better than last year without a question, a couple of games better than last year. But if that quarterback play doesn't take a big step up, it's hard to say that they're going to be a playoff team for me.
Yeah. The thing is, like, it's not just that they're a better team overall, because you shouldn't have the same rate of injuries that you had last year. It's also the schedule, because even you've got Detroit as one of the games that's determined by finishing in fourth place. You have the New York Jets on the schedule once again. You've got the NFC East. Now, that division won't be as bad as it was last year, but I don't think anybody expects any of those NFC East teams to break out and suddenly become a Super Bowl contender next year. So you start looking around the schedule and you see a lot of games that even with average quarterback play, you should win. One thing I should ask you, Zach, though, because you said something really interesting there about the competition going down to the end of the preseason, the quarterback. And if it does, who does that favor? If the Broncos, if it's not clear who the quarterback is by, say, the second or third week of the preseason, which quarterback does that favor? Because I think that means that Drew didn't do enough to ward off Teddy, and I think it would favor Teddy.
Exactly, I think so as well, and I completely agree, because
disagree.
I think they want to give the benefit of the doubt to Drew.
Yeah,
that's what I will say is that I think it's a tie goes to the young player. In this case, where, you know, you're hoping for Drew to break through this season, and if you're looking at it and you're saying, look, these guys are neck and neck. Okay, well, who has the higher ceiling? Who has more room to grow? We're going to go with Drew. Now, again, you might have a short leash on him where you say, hey, look, if you don't take care of the football, we're going to go to the safety net in Teddy. But I think in this case, tie goes to the young guy.
Well, and the reason why I disagree with that, Ryan, is because I think that if it's close, let's say come the beginning of the preseason or just after the first preseason game or midway through training camp, I think they're going to say, Drew, you've shown us enough. You've been able to keep up with this veteran. We're going to give it to you, so now you can get 80% of the offensive snaps. I think if it goes till the very end, they've been really hoping to give it to Drew, and they just haven't seen enough, unless Drew takes off in that second preseason game, and then that's when they give it to him, because they say, oh my gosh, finally he took off. But I see where you're coming from. That's just why I think the other way.
And also the 3-game preseason makes it interesting as well, because I mean, was your plan in an ideal situation to treat the third game of the preseason like you used to treat the fourth game of the preseason, where you're just basically throwing guys out there just to try to get through to the end? Or are you treating the third game of the preseason like you always treat a third game, and you're just wiping that fourth game out? So, you know, how are you dispersing the reps in those games? If it's 50-50 in camp, that means it should be 50-50 in preseason, right? So one would start one game, one would start the other, and then maybe you're talking about the two of them splitting the first team reps in game 3, and one playing, say, the first quarter and then a possession in the second quarter, and then the other taking it into the third quarter. I mean, it's going to be fascinating to see, if this is the competition, just how they divide it up given the different environment in which they are. And I also say this, you know, there's a whole thing of, oh, who takes the first snap of camp? I think Drew takes the first snap of camp. But if Drew doesn't fix the turnover issue, Teddy's going to take the first snap in the regular season.
I mean, it's going to be an interesting battle.
Yeah.
I will say I kind of like our options here from an entertainment and training camp standpoint. You either got Aaron Rodgers here and the frenzy is just off the charts, or you've got a very interesting quarterback competition. Now, one of these is very much going to be the favorite option of Broncos fans, but either way, you're going to have an interesting and exciting training camp, in my opinion.
Let me
So,
ask you this:
Ryan-
Why do you think Jeff Driscoll's still on the roster?
They just haven't found the right device to launch him to the sun yet.
Or is it maybe that if they end up getting Aaron Rodgers and you're talking about maybe having both Teddy and Drew in trades at some point, does Jeff Driscoll end up being Aaron Rodgers' potential backup or competing with Brett Rippon for that job?
No, stop it. No. It'll either be Drew or Teddy as the backup. And Teddy's on the cheap, so I don't think there's any reason why you would trade Teddy if Drew is included in that trade package. No, I don't think Jeff Driscoll's in the Broncos' future plans. And so, Ryan, really quick, where do you think the Broncos are without Aaron Rodgers this year?
Flirting around 500. A couple bounces go your way. The defense starts creating more turnovers, maybe even creates some points, which feels like a thing of the past. Then this team could bump up to, I think I would put their ceiling around 11 wins. But I think, 9 wins, 10 wins, 8 wins is their zone if things stay on the right track. We said that last year as well, and if you just look on paper, well, it looks like we were dumb. The Broncos also had everything fall apart at their feet, and they became a very different team by even week 3 than they were when we were talking about this stuff. So we know that those things can change in a heartbeat. But that's where I think this team is right now. I think that they'll be competing for a playoff spot. I think they'll be competitive in almost all of their games, if not all of them. And I think that this defense is primed to be the best one we've seen in several years here.
All right, I got my tinfoil hat on because I had a brainstorm or a brainwave over the weekend. I want to share it with you. The schedule comes out a week from Wednesday. If the Broncos have like 4 or 5 primetime games, do you think that means the league knows Aaron Rodgers is becoming a Bronco?
Do you think that they're like calling some back channels right now to find out?
Yes, I bet you they are.
Wouldn't a heck of an open? Well, no, I guess the Bucks will get that Thursday night game, but wouldn't a great Monday night game be Chiefs and Broncos with Aaron Rodgers?
You want to make ESPN really happy? I mean, because of course they've looked at their schedules in past years and have said, it's not a great slate that we have. But last year they gave ESPN Baltimore and the Chiefs early in the season. So that would be something. Monday Night Football season opener. Where would you want the game though? I mean, obviously I think from the Broncos perspective, you'd want it here in Denver. Where would the NFL want that game?
They'll probably put it at Arrowhead, but check this out. You'll go Monday Night Football for one of the games, and then the other one will be Sunday Night Football. I mean, everyone's going to want a piece of this.
Yeah, what does CBS do? That's the only problem. I mean, that's because usually, do you remember with Manning, when it was Manning Brady back in the day, it used to alternate between Sunday Night Football on NBC and then CBS. So, for example, when they played in 2012 in Foxborough, CBS. 2013, Sunday Night Football. 2014, CBS. 2015, of course, Osweiler ended up playing that game with Sunday Night Football. They're going to have to work. Now, they've got more games because, of course, they're division rivals, but they're going to have to work out some kind of rotation here, guys, to keep the networks happy because everybody is going to want a piece of Broncos Chiefs if this happens. And then even to a lesser degree, I think there's going to be a lot of appeal for Broncos Chargers as well, with Justin Herbert on the rise too.
Yeah. The AFC West, could split off and create their own Super League.
Yeah, and the Raiders would be, the super bad team in there.
People are going to get sick of the AFC West the way they're sick of the NFC East right now, and I am here for all of it. It's this division's turn, damn it.
Yep. We love it. All right. Well, this has gone very long, and this is just an intriguing conversation that we're going to be having over the next month or so. So stick with us. We appreciate all of you guys who tuned in for the live portion of this. We also do a podcast, and that's where we're heading over to right now. We're going to do the second half of this show in podcast form. You can download it anywhere you listen to podcasts. Just type in Broncos. DNVR Broncos podcast is the first one that shows up. And hopefully we'll see you guys over there. So for now, that wraps up the live side of things. We'll talk to you guys later.